Drake's current meltdown over the dismal performance of his new collaboration album with partner next door, SSS Four U, is something we've never quite witnessed before. What's happening now is the ultimate display of defeat. Rather than owning up to his mistakes, analyzing where things went wrong, and figuring out how to improve, Drake has taken the low road, blaming everyone but himself for the album's failure. It's honestly one of the most pathetic things an artist can do: point fingers at everyone else while avoiding any responsibility for the album's flop. Before we dive deeper into just how desperate Drake is becoming in an effort to deflect attention from the disastrous release of SSS Four U, make sure to hit like and subscribe. As I've mentioned in my recent videos, Drake's fans are still upset with me, and they really don't want you hearing my take on this. So, please, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out and ensures we can keep track of just how far Drake's career has fallen. Now, as for the album itself, SSS Four U is already shaping up to be Drake's worst release to date. Looking at his entire career trajectory, it's truly mind-blowing to see how one of the biggest artists in the game ended up in this situation. He's managed to lose everything due to his own carelessness. Yet instead of re-evaluating his approach and learning from his mistakes, he doubled down on the same failed strategy. He chose to release one of his most important albums, SSS Four U, using the same method that's brought him nothing but failure for over a year now. The results speak for themselves. The album launched with just half the streams of his previous project, For All the Dogs, and it's only gotten worse from there. In the days that followed its release, it set record-low streaming numbers for new Drake music. This is all despite the fact that the album is filled with cringeworthy lines that no one asked for in the first place. Drake's refusal to take responsibility for releasing such a poorly received album has only intensified the situation. At the same time, Kendrick Lamar is dominating the charts, with both his albums and singles reaching new heights of success. Kendrick has maintained momentum from his Super Bowl performance, and his influence is reshaping how people view hip-hop across all eras of his career. It's clear that Kendrick's success is driven by his own consistent quality and talent, everything Drake is struggling to find at the moment. Right now, Drake is facing a major low point in his career while Kendrick Lamar is experiencing unprecedented success. As Drake comes to terms with the fact that his time at the top is over, he's been struggling to find ways to cope with no longer being a dominant figure in the rap scene or music as a whole. After the failure of his collaboration album with partner next door and witnessing Kendrick's rise, Drake hasn't explicitly said it, but has made it clear that he's blaming the industry for his decline. He's been encouraging his friend to spread certain narratives, ones that cast blame on the music industry while deflecting any responsibility from himself and his own mistakes. What Drake wants everyone to believe is that SSS Four U is underperforming because the industry is intentionally suppressing it, while simultaneously pushing Kendrick Lamar's numbers higher and higher. While it's true that Drake's relationship with the industry has shifted, and his image has suffered due to past actions, it's also apparent that the idea of industry suppression is far from the truth. For the first time in his career, Drake is simply being placed on the same level as every other artist. His success is no longer artificially inflated. It's now based on the quality of the music itself and its ability to resonate with the audience. This is made clear by the fact that when SSS Four U dropped, it was featured on the cover of major streaming platforms and included in top rap and R&B playlists. So when Drake complains that he's being ignored or sabotaged, it's important to take a look at the facts. The album was prominently displayed across platforms, but the real story here is that these platforms are doing their job, showcasing what the people are most interested in. The real response came from the listeners, and when it came down to it, Kendrick Lamar's music was being more widely consumed than Drake's new project. These platforms, driven by user recommendations and feedback, push what's popular. And in this case, Kendrick Lamar's catalog, along with his diss tracks, was what the audience responded to. So, while Drake may be trying to push a narrative of being unsupported, the truth is that more people are engaging with Kendrick's music, which is why the platforms are prioritizing what's resonating with listeners. It's clear that in the current landscape, popularity is determined by what the people are choosing to listen to. When we look at the facts and not the narratives that people like Drake or his associates are trying to spin, it becomes even more clear how out of touch Drake is. His attempts to blame Kendrick Lamar, GNX, and the industry for overshadowing his album are nothing more than an attempt to give himself a free pass for the failure of SSS Four U. It's his way of buying time to fix the mistakes he made, hoping his fans will give him another chance. But when we compare this album to another recent collaboration in hip-hop, Vulture's One, we see a much different situation. Vulture's One was actually suppressed. It was removed from platforms, had no support from streaming services, and didn't receive any playlist placement, which is crucial for boosting an album's success. To even find the album, you had to go directly to the artist's page, as it was hidden everywhere else. Despite this clear suppression, Vulture's One still managed to outperform SSS Four U, surpassing Drake's album in streams during its opening days and beyond. It eventually became a #1 album and even had a #1 song with Carnival. What's so telling here is that, when we understand the music industry and look past the narratives Drake is pushing, the contrast is stark. Drake's album had significant support from the industry. It was featured across major platforms and playlists. On the other hand, Vulture's One was actively suppressed. Yet, despite this, Vulture's One still triumphed, showing just how deep Drake's failure really is. The truth is that the public simply doesn't care about what he's doing anymore. If you take a step back and look at the broader trends in the music world right now, it's clear that Drake has lost the audience that once followed him no matter what. Whether he lost the rap fans to Kendrick Lamar or not, Kendrick has set a new standard for what a mainstream rap album can achieve. With the release of GNX, Kendrick redefined the genre and raised the bar for blockbuster rap albums. As a result, GNX is still seeing songs top the charts, while Drake and Party Next Door's album has underperformed in ways that no one anticipated, and it's only been out for a few days. Looking beyond hip-hop, SSS Four U is technically an R&B album, with competition coming from artists like SZA and The Weeknd. But once again, the public has chosen to support other artists who are delivering better albums right now. If you compare records like GNX, Lana, or Hurry Up Tomorrow to Drake's album, it becomes clear why they are outperforming SSS Four U. They simply provide a far more engaging experience. What's particularly baffling here is that Drake had the opportunity to listen to and compare his album with the work of these artists, and many others who are currently thriving in the industry. When we look back on Drake's downfall, it'll be clear that one of the reasons he fell so far is because he failed to top anything. Whether it was Kendrick's legendary diss track, his groundbreaking rap album, or The Weeknd's highly anticipated R&B project. It's a major flaw in thinking for anyone to overlook these achievements. But the reality is that SSS Four U is performing poorly because, ultimately, Drake entered a highly competitive time in the music industry with a collection of throwaway tracks from For All the Dogs and CLB, with Party Next Door thrown into the mix. The problem lies in both the lack of creativity in his music and the fact that he is no longer receiving the special treatment that once inflated his numbers thanks to the industry's old loyalty to him. When it comes to this album's failure, Drake only has himself to blame. He's effectively caused his own downfall by not realizing that the landscape has shifted around him. The industry has evolved, and the standards have changed. What worked for him in the past is no longer enough. The albums and strategies that were once successful are simply outdated now. As for Drake's claim that GNX and Kendrick Lamar are the reason for his album's failure, well, in a way, he's right. But it's not because of any industry manipulation to push Kendrick over him. It's because Kendrick Lamar has simply created a far superior body of work, one that resonates much more deeply with listeners. Add in the fact that Kendrick's performance at the Super Bowl has helped push hip-hop into new, unprecedented territory, and it's clear that is now dominating the scene. Kendrick has over 100 million monthly listeners, which is a record for rap artists, by far. So, right before our eyes, we're witnessing hip-hop move beyond Drake. The music industry has evolved, and listeners are now embracing far more captivating and compelling music in every sense, leaving Drake and his outdated approach behind. As Drake continues to complain about the situation, we can expect his response to get even more desperate as he tries to deflect all responsibility for the album's failure, shifting the blame onto everyone else. No matter how hard he pushes this narrative, especially with the help of people like Akron, the truth remains unchanged. And as long as Drake and his team refuse to acknowledge why his music isn't connecting and why so many other artists are outpacing him by a significant margin, his decline will only continue. Since Drake clearly can't or won't accept this reality, get ready for this to become the new norm, because we'll likely see more of this behavior from him moving forward. So with all that said, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about Drake's stance on Kendrick Lamar and his music outperforming his new album? Do you think he's right in any way? Or do you believe he's just refusing to accept the fact that he's lost in a fair competition? Let me know your thoughts. I'm really curious to hear what you think. And if you've made it this far in the video, as I mentioned earlier, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot, and it's more important than ever. If you want to see how Drake's blaming Kendrick Lamar for his album's failure and making the situation worse, be sure to check out the suggested video.